The hotel lobby looked like a monument to excess. Polished marble floors, crystal chandeliers dripping light, and the faint scent of imported lilies floating through the air. Business travelers hurried past with rolling suitcases, their reflections stretching across the glossy tiles. Everything about the place whispered status, money, and belonging, if you knew how to speak its language. The Arab man stood quietly at the reception desk, hands folded in front of him. His white robe was immaculate but unbranded, his sandals clean yet unremarkable. No gold watch, no entourage, just calm patience. "I have a reservation," he said again, his English careful, precise, but colored by a thick accent. The receptionist frowned at her screen, fingers tapping faster than necessary. "Sir, I've already checked. There's nothing under that name." Her smile was professional but strained, the kind that ended at the lips. The second attendant leaned closer and whispered something, eyes flicking briefly to the man's clothes. "I arrived early," the man explained. "Perhaps under my company's name." The receptionist sighed softly, the sound loaded with annoyance. "Sir, we're very busy. If you could step aside, we'll help the next guest." A silence settled between them, heavy, uncomfortable. The man nodded once, politely, but did not move. His gaze drifted across the lobby, taking in the grandeur with detached familiarity. He had slept in palaces and tents alike. Luxury had long ago lost its power to impress him. Still, the quiet dismissal stung. Behind him, a couple whispered. "Doesn't look like he belongs here," one muttered. "He probably booked the wrong place," the other replied. The man heard them. He always did. Years of boardrooms and border crossings had trained him to recognize judgment before it was spoken aloud. He adjusted his sleeve slightly, a habit from long meetings, and returned his attention to the desk. "I assure you," he said gently, "there is a reservation." The receptionist glanced at the line growing behind him and hardened her tone. "Sir, unless you have confirmation." Her sentence trailed off as a cleaning cart rolled slowly across the lobby, its wheels squeaking faintly against the marble. No one noticed it. No one ever noticed things like that. Except the man. He turned his head just as the cleaner paused nearby, her eyes briefly meeting his. For a split second, something passed between them, recognition, perhaps, or simply shared humanity. And in that moment, before a single word was translated or a single truth revealed, the balance of the room quietly began to shift. The cleaner slowed her steps as she pushed the cart past the reception desk. The squeak of its wheels echoed softly in the vast lobby, a sound so ordinary it usually faded into the background. Today, it didn't. Something about the man standing there, still, dignified, quietly humiliated, made her stop. She adjusted her headscarf and glanced at the receptionists. They were already looking past him, eyes trained on the next guest in line, as if he had become invisible. She knew that feeling well. The way people stopped seeing you once they decided who you were. From the cart, she lifted a small paper cup. Inside was tea, strong, sweet, and still warm. She had poured it for herself during her break, a tiny comfort in a long shift. On impulse, she stepped closer. "Tea?" she asked gently, her voice low, careful not to draw attention. The man turned, surprised. His eyes met hers, and for the first time since he'd entered the lobby, his guarded expression softened. In Arabic, she added, almost shyly, "It helps when waiting." For a heartbeat, he simply stared. Then relief spread across his face like sunlight breaking through clouds. "Shukran," he replied, switching languages. Effortlessly. "You have no idea how long it's been since I heard that spoken kindly." They moved a step aside, just enough to avoid blocking the line. The cleaner held the cup steady as he accepted it, their fingers brushing briefly. In that small contact, formality dissolved. He explained, quietly, who he was and why he had come. Not with pride, but with weariness. Meetings, delays, a long flight, the frustration of being misunderstood yet again. She listened, really listened, nodding, asking simple questions, her attention undivided. Around them, the lobby carried on. Phones rang, suitcases rolled, laughter burst from a group near the elevators. No one noticed the conversation unfolding in plain sight. "You are very patient," she said after a moment. He smiled faintly. Patience is learned when power does not speak first. She glanced back at the desk, then at him. Something shifted in her posture. Less hesitation, more resolve. "I can help," she said. "They don't understand your accent. But I do." The man raised an eyebrow, surprised again, not by her offer, but by her certainty. Then, he said softly, lifting the cup of tea, "Today you are the most important person in this room." And with that, the invisible woman prepared to change everything. The cleaner stepped up to the reception desk, her card left behind like a boundary she had crossed without asking permission. Her hands were steady, though her heart wasn't. She cleared her throat softly, and for the first time that morning, the receptionists looked directly at her. "He has a reservation," she said, calmly but clearly. The primary receptionist blinked. "Excuse me." In Arabic and English, the cleaner continued, "His name is Sheikh Hassan al-Rashid. He arrived early. The booking is under his investment group." There was a pause, just long enough for irritation to surface. "Miss, this is a staff-only matter," the second attendant said, lowering her voice as if correcting a child. The sheikh didn't interrupt. He simply stood there, teacup still in hand, observing. He had watched this scene play out in different forms across the world. What interested him now wasn't the desk, it was the woman speaking for him. "Please," the cleaner said, still polite, still composed, "just check again. Spelling matters." The receptionist exhaled sharply and typed, slower this time. Her brows knit together. She adjusted her posture, leaned closer to the screen, and typed again. Then her face drained of color. "Oh," she whispered. The screen reflected in her widened eyes, flags, notes, a red priority marker. Not a mistake, not a misunderstanding. A very important guest who had been waiting, unheard. She straightened instantly. "Sir, Sheikh al-Rashid, I sincerely apologize. There appears to have been an oversight." The tone of the lobby shifted like air before a storm. The second attendant froze. A manager looked up from across the room. The sheikh raised a hand gently. "No need," he said in even English. "We are all learning." The cleaner translated, though it wasn't necessary anymore. Respect had found its way into the room at last. "We'll arrange the presidential suite immediately," the receptionist rushed on. "Private elevator, complimentary services, security, if you require it." The sheikh glanced at the cleaner. "Only what was originally promised," he said. "And tea," he added, with a faint smile. A few guests nearby had gone silent, ears straining. Moments ago, they had dismissed him. Now they stood in the presence of a man who could buy the building twice over, and chose not to remind anyone of it. As the manager hurried forward with apologies, the sheikh turned slightly toward the cleaner. "You spoke when others wouldn't," he said quietly. "That is influence." Her hands trembled now, but she met his gaze. "I just translated," she replied. He shook his head. "No, you understood." And in that understanding, something far greater than a reservation had been restored. The sheikh's check-in was completed in minutes. Keys were presented with both hands. Smiles appeared where impatience once lived. The lobby returned to its rhythm, but something invisible had changed, like a room after a truth has been spoken aloud. As the sheikh turned toward the elevators, he stopped. The cleaner had already begun pushing her cart again, slipping back into the role the world expected her to play. He watched her for a moment, then called out softly. "Please," he said, "walk with me." She hesitated, glancing instinctively at the reception desk. The manager nodded quickly, suddenly eager. She left the cart behind. They walked side by side beneath the chandelier. From a distance, they looked like an unlikely pair, one a global titan, the other a woman paid to erase other people's footprints. Up close, they were simply two people sharing quiet. "You didn't have to do that," she said at last. "I know," he replied. "That's why it mattered." At the elevator, he asked her name. When she told him, he repeated it carefully, committing it to memory. He asked about her life, where she came from, how many languages she spoke, what she had hoped to become before survival narrowed her choices. No one had asked her these questions in years. A week later, the hotel received a letter. It wasn't an angry complaint or a demand for punishment. It was a request. The sheikh funded a language and hospitality program in the cleaner's name. She was offered a position as a cultural liaison, training staff, assisting international guests, bridging gaps that uniforms could not. The manager called her into the office, voice shaking as he explained. She listened in disbelief, hands folded the same way the Sheikh's had been that first morning. When she returned to the lobby, she poured herself a cup of tea. She no longer drank it alone. From time to time, a guest would struggle at the desk, lost in translation, reduced by assumptions. She would step forward, smile, and help. Not as a cleaner, not as a savior, as a bridge. And somewhere in the world, a sheikh remembered a morning when the most powerful person in the room was the one who chose to see him first. Hot beverage,